Judaism. In Jewish tradition, the story of Adam and Eve is told in the book of Genesis in the Tanakh, Old Testament. Genesis says that God made Adam the first human from the dust of the ground and gave him life. Then God put Adam in the Garden of Eden to tend to it and keep it in good condition. God realized that it wasn't ideal for Adam to be by himself, so he created Eve to be his suitable helper. God put Adam to sleep and took a rib from him to make Eve. From this rib, God formed a woman and brought her to Adam. Adam welcomed Eve as bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Adam and Eve lived in close relationship with God in the Garden of Eden. However, the serpent tempted them to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil which God had forbidden. After eating the forbidden fruit, they realized they were naked because their eyes were opened. They felt embarrassed and made loincloths from fig leaves to cover themselves. God called out to Adam and Eve, who hid out of fear. God cursed the serpent for deceiving them, saying that the serpent's offspring and the woman's offspring would be enemies. God also made childbirth painful for Eve and made her desire her husband, while Adam was punished with having to work hard for his entire life to get food from the cursed ground. So God kicked Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. He didn't want them to eat from the tree of life and live forever in a sinful state. The story of Adam and Eve in Jewish tradition shows how sin started and what it means for humanity. It also shows that God is fair but also kind. Even though Adam and Eve sinned and were punished, God still took care of them and gave them hope for redemption through the woman's offspring who would defeat the serpent. Christianity, the story of Adam and Eve, is found in the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. According to the biblical account, God created Adam, the first man, from the dust of the ground and breathed life into him. God then placed Adam in the Garden of Eden to care for it. Since Adam was alone, God created Eve, the first woman, from one of Adam's ribs. Adam recognized Eve as his equal, and the two lived in harmony with God in the garden. However, the serpent deceived Eve, tempting her to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which God had forbidden. Eve ate the fruit and gave some to Adam, who also ate. As a result, they realized they were naked. They tried to cover themselves with fig leaves and hide from God. God confronted Adam and Eve, and they admitted they had disobeyed. Because of their sin, God made a series of judgments against the serpent, Eve, and Adam. The serpent was cursed to crawl on its belly, and enmity was declared between its offspring and the woman's offspring. Eve was sentenced to painful childbirth and a desire for her husband, while Adam was sentenced to hard labor and toil for the rest of his life to eat. Eventually he would die. God made garments of skin to clothe Adam and Eve and banished them from the Garden of Eden to prevent them from eating from the tree of life and living forever in a fallen state. In Christian theology, the story of Adam and Eve's fall is central to the doctrine of original sin. This teaches that all humans inherit a sinful nature due to the first sin committed by Adam. The New Testament presents Jesus Christ as the last Adam, whose obedience and sacrifice provide redemption and restore the possibility of eternal life for those who believe in him. Islam. In Islam, Adam is seen as the first prophet and the father of humanity. The story of Adam and Eve, or Hawa in Arabic, is mentioned in the Quran. In Islamic teachings, Allah created Adam from clay and gave him life. Allah then told the angels to prostrate before Adam, and they all did except for Iblis or Satan, who refused out of pride and was kicked out of paradise. Allah created Eve as a companion for Adam and put them both in Paradise Jannah, where they could enjoy its blessings. However, Allah also warned them not to approach a specific tree. Iblis tricked Adam and Eve into eating from the forbidden tree. As a result, they disobeyed Allah and were sent down to earth as a test and to fulfill their role as vicegerents or Khalifa. Once they were on earth, Adam and Eve repented for their mistake and Allah forgave them. They became the first humans to populate the earth and their descendants spread throughout the world. In Islam, Adam is seen as a prophet who received guidance from Allah and taught his children to worship the one true God. The story of Adam and Eve is a reminder of the importance of obeying Allah, the consequence of giving in to temptation, and Allah's mercy and forgiveness for those who repent. Unlike the concept of original sin, Islam teaches that every individual is born sinless and is responsible for their own actions. The story of Adam and Eve is seen as a lesson for humanity rather than a basis for the doctrine of inherited sin. In a nutshell, the Islamic story of Adam and Eve is all about the importance of monotheism, submission to Allah, and the human struggle between good and evil. It also shows that Allah is merciful and guides those who seek it. Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the story of the first human couple is that of Mashia and Mashiana. According to Zoroastrian texts, particularly the Bundahishan, Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of wisdom and goodness, created Gaiomard, the primeval man, as the first mortal creature. From Gaiomard's seed, which was purified by the sun, the first human couple, Mashia and Mashiana, grew from a plant in the form of a rhubarb. They were initially joined together, but they were later separated and given distinct forms as man and woman. Mashia and Mashiana lived in a state of innocence and bliss, enjoying the bounties provided by Ahura Mazda. However, they were tempted by Angra Mainyu, the evil spirit, who tricked them into doubting Ahura Mazda and following the path of falsehood. This made them the first humans to sin and experience suffering and death. Despite their mistake, Mashia and Mashiana realized they were wrong and asked Ahura Mazda to forgive them. They became the ancestors of the human race, and their story shows us that there's always been a battle between good and evil, that it's important to choose the path of righteousness, and that there are consequences to giving in to temptation. In Zoroastrianism, humans are seen as moral agents with free will, capable of choosing between good and evil. The goal of human life is to align with Ahura Mazda and maintain the cosmic order Asha through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Zoroastrians believe that good will ultimately triumph over evil and that the world will be restored to a state of perfection at the end of time. Hinduism doesn't have a story like the one about Adam and Eve in Abrahamic religions. However, several myths and narratives in Hindu sacred texts touch upon similar themes of creation and the origin of humanity. The Rig Veda is one of the oldest Hindu scriptures. It contains the Purusha Sukta hymn, which describes the cosmic sacrifice of Purusha, the primordial being. From this sacrifice, various aspects of the universe, including humans, were created. The Brahmins came from Purusha's mouth, the Kshatriyas from his arms, the Vaishyas from his thighs, and the Shudras from his feet. This story is a key part of the origin story of the caste system and the creation of the universe as a whole. Later mythological texts like the Puranas also tell stories about Manu, who is said to be the progenitor of mankind. The Bhagavata Purana says that Manu, son of Brahma, survived a great flood with the help of Vishnu's avatar, Matsya. Manu then became the ancestor of humanity and is credited with receiving and sharing the eternal laws that govern human conduct, known as the Manu Smriti. The Vaishnava tradition shows Vishnu's avatars, like Rama and Krishna, with partners who symbolize divine love and devotion. Hindu myths explore themes of creation, human origins, and the divine-human relationship. They differ from the Adam and Eve narrative in their emphasis on the cycle of rebirth and the attainment of spiritual liberation. In the Baha'i faith, Adam is seen as the first of God's manifestations. The story of Adam and Eve is viewed symbolically, not literally. In some answered questions, Abdul Baha says that a literal interpretation is wrong. He says that the story contains divine mysteries and universal meanings. Adam symbolizes the spirit of Adam, while Eve represents his self. The tree of knowledge represents the material world, and the serpent symbolizes attachment to the material world. The fall of Adam shows how humanity became aware of good and evil, marking the shift from spiritual purity to an understanding of worldly duality. On another level, Adam and Eve represent God's will and decree, the first two stages of the 7 stages of the divine creative action. This perspective makes the point that the story of Adam and Eve is not just a historical account or myth. It's actually an allegory that teaches us some deep spiritual and moral lessons. The Baha'i faith believes that understanding the deeper meanings behind sacred texts and religious narratives is really important. Shinto, Adam and Eve don't appear in Shinto lore. This traditional Japanese belief system has its own set of creation myths, detailing how Japan, its gods, and its people came to be. The Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, 2 ancient Japanese texts, say that the world began with the primordial kami Izanagi and Izanami. They stood on a bridge in the sky and used a jeweled spear to stir the waters, creating the first island, Onogoro. Izanagi and Izanami then went down to this island and made more islands, kami, and natural phenomena. They also gave birth to lots of kami, including Amaterasu, the sun goddess and ancestor of the Japanese imperial line. These texts don't mention a specific first human couple, but they do establish the divine origins of the Japanese islands and the Japanese people. Some Shinto traditions also talk about the concept of musubi, which is the creative and harmonizing power that connects the kami and all living things. Shintoism is all about keeping the harmony between humans, nature, and the kami. Ritual practices, offerings, and the veneration of sacred spaces and objects are all part of this. Whereas the Abrahamic story of Adam and Eve is about humans, Shinto creation myths focus more on the divine origins of the Japanese people and their connection to the natural world and the kami. Greek mythology. Unlike the biblical tale, Greek myths present multiple narratives about the creation of humankind. One of the most well-known stories is the myth of Prometheus. Prometheus, a titan, is said to have created humans from clay. He then gave them fire, which he stole from the Olympian gods, enabling humans to develop civilization. Prometheus' sister Athena gave humans the gift of wisdom and skills. Another myth is about Pandora, the first woman made by Hephaestus, who was ordered by Zeus to do it. Pandora was given a box, which is often mistakenly called Pandora's box, that contained all kinds of evils and misery. When Pandora opened the box, all the bad stuff came out, leaving only hope at the bottom. Some versions of these myths say that Prometheus or another god created the first couple, Deucalion and Pyrrha. They survived a great flood sent by Zeus to destroy humanity. They acted on the advice of an oracle and threw their mother's bones behind them, which they interpreted as stones. The stones thrown by Deucalion became men, and those thrown by Pyrrha became women, which restarted the human race. While these characters play an important role in the creation or revival of humanity in Greek mythology, there's no single couple that directly corresponds to Adam and Eve in the biblical narrative. Norse mythology. The Eddas, core texts of Norse mythology, present a version of human creation that differs from the biblical narrative of Adam and Eve. The Voluspa, a poem in the poetic Edda, says that the first humans were created by three gods. The three gods responsible for creating humanity were Odin, Vili, and Ve. They found 2 tree trunks, an ash and an elm, on the seashore. The gods gave them spirit and understanding by breathing life into them. Odin gave them life, Vili gave them movement and intelligence, and Ve gave them form, speech, hearing, and sight. All human beings on earth today can trace their lineage back to Ask and Embla. In another story, Odin and his brothers Vili and Ve killed the giant Ymir, the first being. They used Ymir's body to create the world and his blood to make the oceans. Maggots started to appear in Ymir's flesh and turn into dwarves. Norse mythology doesn't focus on just one couple as the ancestors of humanity. Instead, it's about how the gods collectively created humans. The focus is on how the gods shaped the world and brought life to different beings, including humans, dwarves, and giants. Hawaiian mythology. Hawaiian mythology's oral legends and chants offer unique explanations for human existence, unlike the Adam and Eve narrative. The Kumulipo, a Hawaiian creation chant, says that the world came into being from the primordial darkness and that the first beings were born from the mating of natural elements. The gods Cain, Ku, and Lono were the main deities responsible for creating the world and all living things, including humans. In one story, Cain and Lono made the first man Kumuhonua from the red earth of Kauai. They gave him life and named him Honua, Earth. The gods then created the first woman, Keolakuhonua, from Kumuhonua's shadow, and named her Lalohonua, which means under the earth. Kumuhonua and Keolakuhonua were the ancestors of the Hawaiian people. Another legend has it that the demigod Maui tried to get the secret of fire from the fire goddess Mahuika. With a little help from his mother Hina, Maui managed to bring fire to humanity, which meant they could cook food and stay warm. Hawaiian mythology is all about how humans, nature, and the gods are all connected. The creation stories are all about how the islands and the people got their start, and how it's important to keep things in balance and harmony with each other.